Welcome to Cyber Jabber. Today I am visited by Tracy Dyer, co-owner of Urban Junket, a Twin Cities maker of luxury leather products. I don't know what you got in there. Who in her 20s visited Neverland at the invitation of Michael Jackson. She was invited there because her dad is Dr. Wayne Dyer, self-help guru, and someone to whom Michael Jackson had some great affection.
He did, yes. He absolutely did.
Now, Neverland was a large piece of property.
It was, yeah, it was very big.
But did it feel more like a home, a museum, an amusement park?
It was a little bit like, it didn't feel like a museum at all, but there was part of it that was the home where Michael lived, and that very much felt like a home. It was like his home, and then he had a guest house that was a little bit, off the home that was beautiful too. And so the home itself felt very much like a home. It didn't feel like a museum. And then the backyard, if you were to go out to the back of the house, was a giant amusement park. So it was, and it went on forever. It was an amusement park, a zoo, like a wildlife refuge. It was mountainous. It was beautiful.
Did you have a lot of interaction with Michael?
Yeah, we actually did. He had gotten in touch with my dad. My dad had just written a book called Real Magic at the time, and Michael was really interested in the concept of real magic. And did it really exist? And Houdini talked about it a lot with after so many years of doing magic, that things that he talked about, real magic taking place, like forget the sleight of hand, but that real magic started to happen. And so my dad actually wrote a book about that whole concept, and Michael was just fascinated by it. And so he reached out to my dad and invited our whole family. And at that time, my dad said, I have 8 kids. And he was like, no, that's okay. I love kids. It's fine. Bring them. And so we all went. And when we got there, Michael wasn't there yet. He was flying in from somewhere. And so we were all actually sitting around his dining room table eating dinner when he came in. And he kind of was taken aback. He's like, wow, there's so many of you, And we were like, yeah, well, my dad's like, sorry, I warned you. There really are 8 kids. And so, but yeah, then he sat down and we had dinner, and we spent about 5 days there in the park. Spent time with Michael in the house, and watching movies. And
now, there were a few Jacksons, so he shouldn't have been surprised by
right, exactly. I don't think our family's any bigger than his. Right. Yeah, like, where's Tito?
So he was. You also had an opportunity to look at a movie or two with him?
We did, yeah. So in the back, or kind of off the side of the amusement park, is a full-size movie theater. It would be like the equivalent of going to Southdale for a movie. And so, but it was really nice because it had a lot of accoutrements for handicapped kids, and so there were a lot of times when he opened the park to groups of children and to kids, and a lot of times handicapped kids, and would have them in there. And so there was all this like space in the back and all these funky chairs that adjusted and things for handicapped children. So that was kind of nice. But we went into the movie theater and we sat down and wanted. He's like, whatever movie you want to watch, it doesn't matter. I mean, we've got any movie in the world. And my 10-year-old sister at the time piped in with, let's watch The Making of Thriller. And he was like, oh, it's kind of embarrassing, but so she ended up talking him into it. And, but it ended up being cool. We watched it, and the whole time he's like, oh, God, this is so embarrassing. This is horrible. You got kids. Isn't there so many better movies out there? You don't want to watch this.
Now, he was a little self-conscious about his image even then, and this was before some of the real unpleasant things that his image took a hit for had come out. He worried that that your dad thought he was freakish.
Yeah, one night, because I was living in Chicago at the time, and the rest of my family was actually in Hawaii, and so we were coming from opposite time zones, so I was up late, and the rest of my family had gone to bed, and Michael kind of came out and saw that I was still up, and sat down and started talking to me. So it was one of the only chances that he and I actually had to have a one-on-one conversation, and he said, does your dad think I'm a freak? And I was like, no, he doesn't think you're a freak. And he's like, well, he's like, I never really had a childhood. I was I was famous at 5, and he's like, I didn't know what normal was, and so he's like, I know, you know, I'm a bit eccentric, but he's like, I'm really not that weird, and he's like, except kind of this one thing, and I was like, what? He's like, I got to show you. And we ended up kind of walking behind this media room and down the hall into what I then found out was his bedroom. And I was like, uh-oh, this is a little weird. But it was perfectly normal bedroom, no hyperbolic chambers or anything. It was just a normal bed that he slept on. And he's like, no, this isn't the weird part. I'm like, oh God, where are we gonna go? And he opens a closet. It's this like gigantic walk-in closet, and we walk in, and I was like, oh my God, it was 100 pair of black pants lined up, 100 white shirts lined up, and like 100 red jackets lined up. And I look at him, and that's what he was wearing at the time as well. And I looked at him, and he's like, I need to diversify my wardrobe a little bit, don't you think? I'm like, a little, yeah. Maybe just a blue shirt, something, green.
Go crazy,
like,
go crazy.
Just go nuts.
Now, was there anything else interesting about his bedroom? How big was it for starters?
It was big. And it was big by like a normal bedroom standard, but not huge. I mean, he had like just a kind of a big king-size bed in there. I mean, everything was big. The house was big. The house was big, but it was really nicely decorated. It was kind of like almost like an English Tudor style, and so it felt very homey, and there didn't feel like a big museum at all. And I guess, I mean, he did have a lot of stuff. Like he had, you know, he had a lot of his, you know, stuff from videos and things like that, like gloves and jackets and things from costumes from videos he had made and stuff like that. But and he had at the time, like I remember he had like a big E.T. He loved that movie, and he had a big E.T. stuffed thing, and you know, I mean, he had like cool statues and things like that. Like I think it was one of the things, the E.T.s that they used in the movie, and so he had a lot of stuff like that that was museum-like, but it didn't feel that way.
Were there many paintings of Michael Jackson in Michael Jackson's house?
No, there weren't. There were none. There were also no pictures of his family, which I thought was a little weird. Because like when you go into my parents' house, it's covered in pictures of the family. But no, there were none. I didn't see any.
Maybe that was in another room, you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, maybe. But
you thought you had the run of the whole place, and you didn't see that.
Yeah, we were kind of there for a while, and so no, there weren't a lot of. If there weren't a lot of pictures of anybody. There were just mostly paintings.
These are great memories, but you've got no photographs from this.
No, we weren't allowed to take pictures. That was one thing that they told us when it was kind of a stipulation of going there, was we weren't allowed to bring any cameras in, and we weren't allowed to take any pictures with Michael. I mean, you know, he was such a megastar, and I think just the fear of where they might land or how they might be interpreted, kind of thing. I mean, it was, you know, we had one funny story. I actually was talking to my dad last night, and he and I were kind of remembering the times that we were there, and he's like, remember when Sands punched Michael in the stomach? And I was like, kind of. And then he reminded me of the story. We were actually like on 2 or 3 golf carts, and we were riding to the back of the park, and Michael was driving one of the golf carts, and my sister Serena was sitting in the front with, and she was about 6.5 at the time, and she was holding my brother Sands, who was about 3.5 at the time, and you know, it seemed fine. It was just little golf carts. It wasn't, you know, we weren't going very fast, and we pull around to the back of the park, and Michael like takes kind of a sharp turn, and Serena, because she's 6.5, isn't really paying attention and lets go of Sands, and he goes flying out of the golf cart. And he comes, and he wasn't hurt. It was, you know, we were going slow, but he comes running, like kind of walking around to the other side of the golf cart, because he perceived it as Michael's fault, that he took the turn too sharp instead of like Serena, who dropped him. And he comes running around to the other side of the car, and he punches Michael in the stomach, like with his little 3-year-old fist, and Michael starts laughing. He's like, what's the matter? And he's like, you made me fall, you turned too hard, and you made me fall. And for like the next 24 hours, he was mad at Michael. Like he wouldn't talk to him, he wouldn't look at him. And
oh, that's great. That's good. Well, I really appreciate you coming in and sharing this with me.
Yeah.
Because this is a once in a lifetime.
Yeah, it was great. It was really
event.
cool.
Wow.
He was such a nice man, and so generous and so kind to all of us, and yeah, it was a very unique opportunity.
And you didn't sense any of this other stuff that was going to come out, these allegations?
Never.
And you can't wrap your mind around those either.
No, to me it's very much like he was kind of like a child himself, and really loved kids. And I mean, I think he really loved kids mostly because he liked to play with them. And I mean, his house was a playground for children, and I mean, that's what he loved. And so, I mean, he was so childlike and so sweet and innocent that, you know, the whole concept of the pedophile. Do I think he probably made some poor decisions as an adult? Yeah, that, you know, you get judged harshly as an adult for those kinds of decisions and the things that you do. I absolutely think that he probably made some poor choices that ended up getting him in trouble, but I just, there's no way I can wrap my head around him ever hurting a child. He was like that. Children were his favorite thing, so.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's a wrap for the Cyber Jabber.